All right, welcome everybody. Great to be back at F3 again this year. I'm excited to see some of the conversations and all the great different companies back again this year. So, as you saw from the video, we've been creating some great transportation and operational capabilities across quite a few years to support businesses and shippers like all of you. Amazon Freight is our externalization branding for taking our transportation, middle mile transportation network, and opening it up to shippers. Today, I'm going to share a few stories and examples of technology that we've used as we've progressed our network over the last decade that has now become the backbone of Amazon's transportation network. First, I want to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and hopefully many of you as well. That is trailers. We could not have a middle mile network without trailers. You're all familiar with these relatively simple boxes on wheels. And actually, we have to credit a gentleman named Alexander Winton, who invented the first trailer back in 1898. It was a rudimentary mechanism built out of necessity. Alexander was an early car manufacturer and wanted to move cars across his network without putting a bunch of miles on them, similar use case today. And he built a trailer with just a rear axle, as you can see in the picture, that could put a vehicle on top of it and move those between his network. He was in many ways the creator of what has become the trucking industry today. Over a large number of years, trucking has evolved, trailers have evolved, 100 plus years of innovation, tires have improved for a smoother ride, trailers have evolved with sides and support and a variety of different incarnations from flatbed to full trailers to reefers, etc. And improved in aerodynamics and fuel efficiency, as well as technology. And as we look at the technology that's gone into transportation, trailers being the capacity mechanism for transportation, we've seen a lot of technology flow into those trailers, specifically over the last few years. From GPS tracking, which isn't necessarily new, but you're seeing it very ubiquitously, to even solar-powered GPS tracking like we have in our fleet, so you'll never lose a trailer, to a variety of different sensors. I'm going to talk about a few of them throughout the presentation. And we've seen this steady progress over quite a few years to take a very simple idea from over 100 years ago and make it the backbone of transportation today. The other thing to think through, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we solve hard-to-solve supply chain problems. And as much as we'd all like to think there's a silver bullet that's going to open up massive opportunity, it's rarely the case. It's usually incremental improvement, finding a customer problem and solving one customer problem and then the next one and then the next one. Over many, many years is what will eventually have the biggest impact. I like to borrow a quote from our Amazon CEO, Andy Jassy. It often takes decades for an overnight success. And if we look at the transportation evolution just within our network and Amazon over the last decade, it's obviously scaled to pretty large scale and impact, but it hasn't happened overnight, and it hasn't been via a silver bullet. It's been over a long period of time. I was in a conference yesterday in New York City with a variety of leaders sharing their view on the world and how they look at different businesses and industries, and some pretty powerful, important people like Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, a couple of former US presidents. And what struck me most was they all took a very long view of how to solve big problems. They all were very customer focused, a lot of different customer personas, but very customer focused. You look at what's going on in the NFL, and there's a lot of focus on how to broaden their customer base, and they're doing it very methodically and using insights, vision, and data to do it, and looking at the impact over many decades. And I think as we built this transportation network, we tried to take a very long view of how big it would become and the impact, and how we can use both technology and customer data to deliver on that. So a little bit about me. I've been at Amazon just over 9 years now. In the early days, we started with a technology platform. We are ultimately a technology company that is in a lot of different businesses now. And as we looked at transportation, which is critical to scale our consumer retail business, we took a very technology-focused approach. We built a mobile application we call Amazon Relay. We built technology, hardware and software and sensors in our trailers, in tractors. We built planning algorithms to optimize routes. You saw from the video there, different route incarnations, many billions of route incarnations to optimize routes. And we built all of these pieces of technology, not overnight, over relatively short periods of time, but we built them incrementally, solving different customer problems. We also scaled our asset base from the first trailers we bought in 2015, 2016 to, we're over 70,000 Amazon branded trailers in our network today, over 24,000 intermodal containers, and growing very fast to meet the needs of our customers every single day. Along the way, as we were building and iterating on the network, we realized we also wanted to introduce new supply types that would support the Amazon network. So we built a program called Amazon Freight Partners, or AFP. And what these are small businesses that we've helped incubate and build into components of our transportation network that use our technology and use our assets and execute these components of our network. And that's been a great component of how we have built out the diversification within our network. We have also found opportunities where we've built network capabilities that are interesting for other applications. So for example, we recently, over this past year, have opened up our Amazon Air cargo network to third-party shippers as well. So we run a fleet of a little over 100 airplanes, and now third-party shippers can actually tap into that network and use it to move their freight as well. My current role is the general manager of Amazon Freight, externalizing our network to shippers and using all the technology and platform that we built to scale even further. So we're going to talk about a few different things today. One, I want to really hit on the point of using technology with the right balance, not just using technology for the sake of technology, using technology to build and solve customer problems. Staying focused on customers, we call it customer obsession within Amazon, is absolutely critical. As soon as you lose your North Star to what a customer actually wants, you end up building something that disappoints your customer or doesn't fulfill or solve the problem and end up creating limited value. And then we're going to go deep on some real use cases and some fun anecdotes of how we built this network over the last decade, some of the things that worked, some of the things that maybe didn't work, and hopefully there'll be some good lessons to take home. Now, when we look at transportation technology, I think we should all acknowledge that it's not an easy problem to solve. There are many challenges that are inherent to this business. We have inconsistent data sources in many cases, limited standardization within the freight industry, can be gaps in visibility of how your freight is flowing through your network. And there's lots of different tools and software platforms that are often not fully integrated. And then on top of that, we have multimodal supply types, trucking, rail, air, ocean containers. And then on top of that, you live in the real world, so you have disruptions, you have weather, you have traffic, you have other things that are happening in the world that makes it even harder to deliver for the network. And I say these things just to put them on the table. Those are all kind of the reality. Those are the cards we've all been dealt. How we deal with those cards, how we handle disruptions, how we use technology to have better insight of what's going on and solve the problems. That's the real opportunity and challenge that we all have in this business. I'll give you an example from the very early days of the Relay app. So we built the Relay app. We started in 2016. We launched it in October of 2017. We had big, grand vision of all the things we would have in the Relay app, many which are there today in 2025, but they were not there in 2017. 2017, we were focused hard on getting an initial launch out, coming up with all the naming and branding, coming up with some use cases that would make an impact to our network. And as our network was scaling at that point in time, one of our big pain points was yard check-in. How do we get flow through of our yards faster so that we don't have queues and lines at the gate? And that was one of the initial use cases we focused in heavily on in the Relay app. And so the initial launch pre-peak of 2017 was focused on that use case, and we had a QR code that would be displayed on the Relay app to be able to check in efficiently and quickly throughout the yard. I very specifically remember that summer out testing our app in one of our buildings in Minneapolis, MSP1, and we had some trucks line up. Like, great, this is going to be a good test use case. We had the drivers all trained in on it. A couple of drivers checked in perfectly. We're high-fiving each other. And then a garbage truck pulled up. and got stuck at the gate because that was not one of our user requirements. We had completely missed the different kind of, only once a day a garbage truck comes, but we still need an efficient check-in for that. Otherwise, it would create a gate backup. And it was a good lesson learned. It was relatively straightforward solve, but it's an important reminder that the grand vision of all the things you can do, if it doesn't work in the real world and blocks the gate, it didn't actually work or solve the problem. And so continuing to iterate, continuing to have ground truth on what's happening in your network, continuing to test and validate your technology is super important. But why is technology so important? I don't just say that because I work for a technology company. I truly believe it. Technology creates consistency, creates scalability. When we first launched the Relay app, we didn't know that we'd have hundreds of thousands of users over time, but we built it for scale and expected it to scale. And also, technology builds supply chain resiliency. Resiliency in supply chain is talked about a lot nowadays. Obviously, there's global events happening that make the resiliency even more challenging and top of mind. And if we look at the definition of resiliency, it's the ability to avoid, absorb, and recover from the business impact of uncertainties associated with disruptions. We already talked about disruptions are going to happen, so how do you deal with them? Technology is a tool that enables you to better deal with the realities of what happened in the real world, aka disruptions. Gartner research says that 92% of companies will fail to deliver full end-to-end resiliency by next year. It's a perfect case to use technology to solve real problems. Resiliency is critical for anyone's supply chain. And so as we built our network, we've used technology as the main enabler to deliver on that. So when we talk about customer obsession, or deeply understanding your customers, it's important to figure out what to build. It's also important to figure out what not to build, or building the wrong thing. And you need to deeply understand who your customer is. And your customer may be lots of different people. You can have multiple customers for one particular solution. For Amazon Freight, externalization of our Amazon network, our customer is clear. It's businesses and shippers that use our network. But there's actually a daisy chain of customers that come before that are equally important. You have drivers that drive the load. You have carriers, you have maintenance providers, you may have associates, yard hustlers, et cetera. And they all have their own unique problems and challenges. And if it doesn't all work seamlessly together in real time, every minute of every day, your network doesn't work and you don't deliver for your end customers. And so making sure that you understand all of your customers, that you can deliver for all of your customers, is the only way to actually deliver for your end customer. Now, a good framework to think through in asking the right questions and differentiating between just building tech because it's fun and cool and building technology for customers. You shouldn't ask, what app should I create? But you should ask, how are my drivers interacting in the field and what do they need to deliver their job? You shouldn't ask, how can I use AI? Although everybody does right now. But more accurately be, where are my teams wasting time going through data where they could be done more efficiently, and what technology and tools could be used to enable that? I've definitely adhered to this principle over the years, both in startups and at Amazon. And it is a fine difference between focusing on the customer needs versus just building the technology, but it really does make a difference. So with that in mind, let's dive into a couple of use cases. First, we're going to talk a little bit about how to support drivers in the Relay app. Then we're going to talk about some of the technology we have on board our trailers, and then a few use cases of where we are using Gen AI to make things more productive. Like any trucking journey, it begins with the driver. And how can we give drivers more confidence in executing their loads every day? We serve drivers, as I mentioned, through a mobile app that they have in their vehicle. And we discovered early on as we were launching the Relay app and deploying more and more features, we also listened very carefully. Spent endless hours with drivers on ride-alongs, doing roundtables, getting feedback through a variety of different mechanisms to understand what does the driver really want. And one thing we heard loud and clear is that drivers wanted to have a better plan. They didn't just want to hop in the cab and follow an app. They wanted to have understanding of where they were going, what they needed to do that day, and kind of plan their day. And we saw when we did not deliver that in the early versions of the app, they would use pen and paper or go on Google Maps. It would take more time, and it actually can mislead them because if you're not using a commercial routing application, you can send you in the wrong direction, which could be unsafe and certainly inefficient. So from this, we created something called a pre-trip briefing. This pre-trip briefing is just a screen or a few series of screens in the mobile app that keep the driver prepared and well-informed and making them a safer driver. So things such as route details, weather information, all the information that they should know along the route, as you can kind of see on the screen there. And we take this a few layers further. So ETA, of course, distance, speed, etc. But behind the scenes, what we're actually doing is finding the most efficient and safe route for that driver. That doesn't just mean how to get from point A to point B. It means commercial routing from point A to point B. It also means what's the safest route from point A to point B. And how do we determine that? Yes, we're using road classifications and components. It's typically safer to drive on a freeway type environment than a smaller road, but also using real data from our network to determine what is the safest route, statistically speaking, to put that driver on, and that's how we route them. There's a lot both in what the driver is seeing and also what they're not seeing that puts them on the best route for them. Also, we've implemented information about the yards. Quick show of hands, who's ever been to a yard? Trucking yard. Must be most people, I would hope. Yep. They all look exactly the same, right? Unfortunately, not the case. They all look exactly different. I don't know why that is, by the way, but it's definitely the way it goes. It's a combination of real estate and building flow, et cetera. And so this can be a very disorienting experience for a driver if they're coming to a site that they haven't been there before and they don't know what dock door to go to. They don't know where to check in. They don't know that information. Now, in Amazon yards, which are also not exactly the same, by the way, but they do have a standard flow and a standard process. But if you're going to a yard that's not Amazon, it might be a totally new experience for the driver. So we implemented within the app some information, photography, aerial photography, as well as routing information that we get directly from the third parties we work with to ensure that the driver knows where to go and can efficiently process the load within the yard. I know there were some sessions, I think, on Monday on cargo security and theft, which is a hot topic, not in a good way, but a topic often talked about right now in the industry and a real industry problem. I was on a theft panel a couple months back at the University of Minnesota talking with law enforcement components and other companies in the industry. It is a growing problem in the network, and there's lots of initiatives, both the public policy, law enforcement, and partners and carriers working on it. We have tried to do our part in using technology to minimize and detect theft or inconsistencies in how loads are executed. So I think we have Craig's picture up there for those who might recognize Craig. He was nice enough to borrow his photo, and I told him at least an hour ago we were going to use it, so he's fully signed off on. But this functionality of driver verification security requires the driver of the load to take a picture before the load, any stops in the load, at the end of the load to verify the person assigned to the load is actually the one executing the load. Again, sounds relatively simple, but actually has helped in creating more security and validation of the loads and who's executing them. Excuse me. So now we'll move on, talk about trailers. So we've been doing a lot of work on our trailers over the last decade. We've obviously purchased a large number of trailers. We've also had a vision from the beginning that these trailers were going to be more than just a box and wheels, that these would be an opportunity to use technology to get visibility to our loads kind of ubiquitously throughout our supply chain. We had this vision really in 2016, and I remember talking to trailer OEMs and other IoT partners at the time, and they were surprised on our approach, and it hadn't really been done very much to use a large amount of technology in our trailers. We had done it in our fulfillment centers. We had done it in other applications. We had a pretty, I'd say, stubborn vision on knowing we needed better visibility and use technology. How it was all going to play out, how it was going to scale, how it was going to be ruggedized for that environment were all things we had to learn our way through. But I think I'm very happy we stuck with that vision, and I think it's paid dividends many times over. Now, when we look at trailers also have a whole array of customers that are downstream from the trailers. Maintenance providers, associates interacting with those trailers, safety, and whether they're PM inspections, et cetera. All of these things are things you need to know in order to properly and safely manage a large trailer fleet. And so we, unsurprisingly, have used a variety of different technologies implemented in our Amazon beautifully blue Prime trailers there, from GPS tracking to tire inflation systems, to door sensors, to cargo sensors, excuse me, which allows us to monitor in real time throughout our network not only where our freight is, what the status of the freight is, whether the trailer's been opened or loaded, and is the trailer healthy and worthy for the road. One feature I'm going to double click on here is tire inflation systems. So from the very beginning, close to the beginning, we have had and still do have auto inflation systems on our tires. For those not familiar, what that means is you have air tank systems built into the trailer, and if a tire has a leak, it automatically inflates it to keep it up and running. Oops, something just happened with my slides. Oh, sorry. One second. All right, there we go. We added tire pressure monitoring systems. And so what that has helped us do is understand the behavior of a tire. So if you think a tire situation, no different than in your consumer car, if you have a slow leak, you may or may not know about it. Eventually the slow leak becomes a big leak, and then you eventually have a flat tire. The air inflation systems actually mask some of that because they would keep a slow leak tire up and running all the time. And so we added remote monitoring that we get via cellular to be able to monitor the tire pressure of all tires all the time throughout our fleet. And then we can watch trends. We can see when tires are degrading. We can proactively change tires before we have a flat tire. Or we can proactively wait, say this is only losing X PSI per week. We'll get this in the next PM. So it's actually driven a lot of efficiency and improvement in uptime by managing tires. And as you can imagine, 70,000 trailers, it's a lot of tires. And so properly managing them is super critical. Talking one more comment on trailer security and cargo management, we have built in different redundancies throughout our technology and our network to understand the relationship between where a trailer is, where a tractor is, and where the driver is, which are hopefully all in the same spot when all is working well. But if we have GPS tracking in our trailer, we have GPS tracking in our Amazon branded tractors, and then we have GPS tracking via our mobile relay app. And so we've been able to triangulate all those three and show, like, when a load is supposed to start at 11 o'clock, all those three should be aligned. If they're not aligned, something is off, and it could be off in a honest mistake way, or it could be off in a bad actor way. And so it's been interesting to use some of the data and signals that we have in order to better authenticate and better either track and trace after the fact or proactively prevent something unexpected from happening. All right, we're going to switch topics here to disruption management and delays. As I mentioned earlier, none of us have the power to change the weather or other unexpected events that may happen over the road. But importantly, what's the safest and most efficient way to get a driver back on the road and the freight back moving? So here, within Amazon, we have an agent team called Relay Operations Centers. We call them ROC. Very cool name for an internal team. And their job is to support drivers on the road. So if the drivers have an issue, they will call ROC. We have a click-to-call function within the app that gets them connected with support. Our main teams are in both Phoenix and Atlanta. And as a ROC agent, as a customer, and as someone that's an important, integral part of our team, they need access to a ton of information in real time to be able to synthesize what is going on. A driver's calling them, telling them X. They need to be able to validate X is actually happening. They need to know what's happening downstream with the route, and then what are their options to get those customer packages or whatever freight to the next destination as safely and efficiently as possible. This is a perfect case for Gen AI. You couldn't actually draw up a better case for Gen AI. We have a lot of different data that needs to be synthesized very quickly and then displayed accurately so a human can make a judgment call and get things backflowing, and in this case, improve the disruption. So how does this work in practice? I'll take a real-time example. I wasn't driving a truck yesterday, but I was sitting in New York City traffic trying to get to the airport. If anyone's ever tried to do that, it's pretty painful. What would have happened if I was in a truck and I experienced this delay? The truck driver likely would have contacted ROC and said, I'm stuck in traffic. The ROC agent would have looked at their tools, and their Gen AI tools would have seen the traffic, validated what the driver said was accurate, looked at what additional stops and routes they have that day, looked at whether that freight was time sensitive, aka customer deliveries the next day or the next hour, or was not time sensitive. Maybe it's a movement of pallets. So if it was delayed a day, it didn't matter per se. They have all that information then synthesized at their fingertips, and they have the ability then to quickly make the correct decision to get that customer and driver back on the road. Additionally, we built a chat assistant, which allows the agent to actually ask questions to the assistant to get further information. Every case can be a little bit unique, and so they may have additional questions of what is the proper standard work in this case or that case. And that has empowered our agents to resolve issues faster, more accurately, which has been a win for them in their own satisfaction on delivering on their own metrics and delivering for our customers, and also for the drivers to get them back on the road safer and more efficiently. So lots of discussions on AI, of course, across the platform, across the industry. I think we've taken an approach of finding practical applications where we can use this technology, and there's going to be many, many more as the Gen AI evolution continues to expand. But excited to put it in practice within the Amazon Freight network. I'm going to share a quick example, slightly outside of freight, but I thought it would be fun to share with this audience. I talked earlier about our air cargo business. We also have something called a prime air business. They both go in the air, but otherwise they have very little in common. Air cargo is big airplanes, prime air is drones. And we have been working on this for quite a while, but are we in the stages now where we are actually commercializing it and have customer packages going to customers' houses at amazingly quick speeds. I'm going to click a quick video here. Prime Air is currently delivering to customers in the West Valley, Phoenix area today. Customers can purchase an eligible item that has to be less than 5 pounds and is delivered by drone in under an hour. It's pretty impressive. Once the order is delivered and received, the drone flies back to home base and goes get another package. It's typically an area set in a yard, like you saw in the video, designated by the customer, and it drops the package from a safe height. Teams have been working on this for many years. Super excited to see this come to market. Jeff Bezos has often been quoted in saying a customer never complained about us delivering things too fast. And drones is another way that we can delight our customers with fast, efficient delivery. This brings us together to the true transportation revolution, which is an incremental one, often largely unseen. Transportation has always been a game of how do we get packages or items from A to B and making it safer and more efficient. Technology is an enablement and a tool to accelerate it. It's largely done incrementally versus in big leaps and bounds. And just like trailers that started 120 plus years ago, we see an evolution in transportation technology that is going to continue to evolve in the coming years. We tend to focus on the long game. It's interesting, the hype of what's happening, but we tend to focus on the long game, focus on customers, and that usually lands us in the right spot. All of this technology runs through our network and runs and serves shippers like you here today via Amazon Freight. And one more quick video.
Any company can buy trailers. That's not what makes us different. What makes us different is Amazon is a technology company in its heart. Through technology, we solve disruptions. We are more efficient about how we plan our routes. And when an issue happens, we are there to provide a very quick solution. It is really a very simple process. We built it for Amazon. Now we're opening the same service to any company that wants to use Amazon Freight. We treat your freight as if it's our own. That's our promise.
Amazon Freight is the external arm of Amazon's middle mile network. We are a freight provider, similar to a carrier, similar to a broker, but actually different. We have substantial assets and technology that make our network work uniquely. It's the same network that uses the Relay app, uses smart trailers, uses generative AI to optimize the network. And like Eduardo said in the video, we truly do treat your freight like our freight. It's how our network was built. It's simply how it works. I appreciate everybody's time today. Super excited to have some more discussions over the course of the day here at the conference. Please join me and the team at our booth afterwards if you have questions. And thanks again for the time.